Hello, Sunshine. This is ALEXI LALAS, and welcome to the State of the Union podcast, where we look at the beautiful game on and off the field through the lens of red, white, and blue-colored glasses. This week, we'll be talking, Copa America group stage is done, so we're in the knockout stage. The Euros, they're in the knockout stage. MLS, LFG, water skiing, and so much more. But first, joining me, as always, my friend, my colleague, my guiding light, David Mosse, a soccer savant and a Fox Soccer researcher and writer extraordinaire. Mosse, how are you on this Tuesday, June 29th? Yes, again, we are coming at you a day late because, as you know, we are knee-deep in the summer of soccer, and Mosse in particular has all sorts of stuff going on, so please forgive us, but we are getting the State of the Union out once again a day late. How you doing, Mosse?
I am doing well. I know I've made this reference before on the podcast. I grew up in New York listening to the Mike and the Mad Dog radio program. I used to love when they did a show during the NCAA college basketball tournament, and they'd be describing the action while doing a radio show. And it's a similar dynamic today. I have the England-Germany game on. It's 0-0 in the second half. And this could time out perfectly because where Jeff Hernandez placed our Euro chat in the rundown, we could be offering fresh takes as soon as this game goes final, unless it goes into extra time. But what are the odds a Euro match goes to extra?
All right, well, we're going to get into all of that. But yes, we are watching this as it plays out. Ooh, Kai Havertz just hit a bomb. Oh my goodness. But it didn't go in the net. So it's still 0-0 from where we are right now. Okay. Mosse, are you watching anything besides soccer? There's so much soccer to watch. I can't imagine that a lot of people have a lot of other stuff going on when it comes to their watching habits, but are you taking a break at all from all the soccer out there?
Well, good news for your school teacher friend. Part 2, season 1 of Lupin has dropped on Netflix. 5 more episodes. I'm off and running on those. I've watched the first 2. I will probably finish in the next couple of days. So I have that going on.
My wife actually mentioned that because she knows that you are a Lupin fan, and she obviously predicted that you were going to be all over that. She is too. Although it hasn't not been a ringing endorsement yet so far for what's out now. So we'll see how that goes. I, as we mentioned last week, continue to be knee deep in Downton Abbey, and there's all sorts of stuff. And I know you haven't started watching it, so I'm not going to talk about any specifics when it comes to it. But I can't stop watching it. I want to stop watching it, but I can't stop watching it. But it's not necessarily because it is awesome. It's just because I have this compelling need to finish it and get it done and finish the binge. So I will continue on. I am in season 3, almost finishing up season 3. So I'm about to start season 4. So well on my way when it comes to Downton Abbey. You got a lot of work to do, my friend, when the summer of soccer is over to catch up. All right, should we light this candle?
Yep.
All right, we're going to start off first with MLS, which rolls on, and all sorts of stuff happening when it comes to Major League Soccer on and off the field. By the way, announcement today when it comes to the All-Star game for Major League Soccer, which we have the privilege and the opportunity to broadcast on Fox this summer here in Los Angeles, featuring the MLS All-Stars versus the Liga MX All-Stars, and all of that entails and all the narratives with the current and potential future relationships and connections between these two countries and 3 countries and leagues out there. They also announced the Skill Challenge. Now, I have done the Skill Challenge. I broadcast the Skill Challenge many years ago, and they're bringing it back. And for those that don't know, it's you get some players from one side and players from the other side, and they have all these different skills, whether it's banging it off the crossbar or kicking it in the air or juggling or accuracy and all that kind of stuff. It actually ends up being a pretty fun made-for-TV type of event, and you get to see some of these stars in a different type of situation, but you also get to see them do some really good things, and that those competitive juices, I'm telling you right now, they come out because now it's all on them. It's individual, and they have to perform. It's done in front of a crowd, and obviously it's televised, so we're looking forward to that. All right, speaking of stars, Mosse, let's start off with Chicharito, okay, who has completely changed himself, and I think in doing so changed the way that we are assessing the Chicharito experiment when it comes to Major League Soccer and the Los Angeles Galaxy. He continues to roll on in terms of the goal scoring, and in this Clásico that is the Los Angeles Galaxy versus San Jose, in the latest installment, it was up in San Jose in a packed house up there. in San Jose, and the Galaxy came in and absolutely destroyed San Jose. And Chicharito got 2 goals. He is at, what is he at, 9 or 10 right now, Mosse? Where's he at?
10.
Jeez, double digits already for Chicharito. And for those that watched the utter failure that was last year for Chicharito, you know that he made a lot of changes, both mental and physical, and it is resulting in a better Chicharito, and that is resulting in a better Galaxy. And yes, Greg Vanney has to be looked at already as a potential coach of the year candidate when it comes to what he is doing with this Galaxy and how he has turned their fortunes and where they are, and that he's getting Chicharito to score goals. Did you watch any of that, Mosse, the Clasico?
I did. And first off, Kobe Jones still rides for this rivalry. I did a Liga MX game recently with Keith Costigan and Kobe Jones, and they got into a heated debate over what is the biggest rivalry in MLS, Seattle, Portland, or Galaxy, San Jose. But the interesting thing about this Chicharito performance is it comes in the midst of this Mexico controversy regarding the Gold Cup. I don't know if you've been following this, but Chicharito was placed on the preliminary roster. It does not appear he will be on the final roster, but somebody who will be is Rogelio Funes Mori, who is this Argentinian-born striker from Monterrey who just recently became eligible for Mexico, and Tata Martino is a big fan of his. And so it looks like Funes Mori will be on the Gold Cup roster and not Chicharito, although in a game we'll get to shortly, Alan Pulido got injured in Sporting KC's win over LAFC. So that might open the door back up for Chicharito. But as of now, it doesn't appear he'll be on that Gold Cup squad. And so that's triggered all sorts of debate in Mexico. You got Hugo Sanchez chiming in. And is it right that somebody like Funes Mori takes a spot away from Mexico's all-time leading scorer when he's in the kind of form that he's in? So all of that is swirling around. And in the midst of all that, Chicharito, another big game, scores 2 goals. So I was happy to see that.
Well, Tata Martino, we know, ascribes to my theory that form is fallacy. Okay. And I think he understands that it's not as simple as that when it comes to a national team. Having said that, a national team that is looking for a striker, a number 9, somebody to play that position in the way that Mexico is, and by the way, the U.S. is too, to have Chicharito, given his history and his ability, scoring goals. This isn't a Josie Altidore type of situation where he's just based on name. The guy is a goal scorer. He's there. He's available. I mean, from a selfish perspective and a Fox perspective, we would love to see Chicharito be part of El Tri. But even if he's not, we get to watch him with the Los Angeles Galaxy. I will say, to your point, when you're talking to Kobe Jones, who we had the pleasure of working with a bunch of days this week, and it was just fun to see my old friend and to reminisce and talk about a lot of different things. I disagree with him when it comes to the biggest rivalry. I still think that it's Los Angeles LAFC versus the Los Angeles Galaxy. And while I know there's a history when it comes to San Jose, the noisy neighbors and everything that is involved in this city of Los Angeles, I think that has come in and taken over as the biggest rivalry, not just in Los Angeles, but the biggest rivalry in Major League Soccer. All right, so what do you want to move to now? Down there in FC Dallas, speaking of great teams and maybe coaches of the year, certainly someone like Bruce Arena would be in the conversation with what he has done with the New England Revolution. And by the way, I'm going to talk a little bit more about the New England Revolution in my Ask Alexi segment, but the New England Revolution sitting in the top of the East, go down to Dallas, and Pepe scores twice and they beat the number 1 team. And look, I know that at times the FC Dallas can be the brunt of some jokes, given the fact that they rely so heavily and have kind of hung their hat on development as opposed to just being consistently good in Major League Soccer. But this is a nice little, speaking of caps, a nice little feather in the cap to, and it's so MLS. It's such an MLS result. Anything there, Mosse?
Well, another big weekend for teenagers. You mentioned Pepe scoring twice. In the game we just talked about, San Jose Galaxy. San Jose's goal did come courtesy of Kate Cowell. Quinn Sullivan with that amazing bicycle kick in that crazy Chicago-Philadelphia 3-3 game. So, yeah, youngsters continue to shine. And another one that's been terrific this season is Caden Clark, who we found out recently is going to move to Leipzig in 2022. So I'm sure you have lots of thoughts on that. But, teenagers continuing to impress.
It's fun when we see such young talent actually, one, get an opportunity, but more importantly, perform. Because, as I've said before, I am not awed, or I don't necessarily want to pay money to see young talent. I want to see young talent that's good and that is producing. So when this young talent that they are on the field and producing, that's what's great. It's even better that they are so young because you have so many years, and theoretically they are going to get better. Now that's only theoretical. It doesn't always end out like that. But to see them taking their opportunity, and any of us that have ever been around this game, you know that there are opportunities that come along, and it could be because of injury. It could be because of change of coach. It could be because of COVID. It could be because of a million different things. And you got to be ready when they point to you. And I think that there's much more belief and, I guess to a certain extent, courage when it comes to coaches and teams to tap on some of their developmental talent that they have, and believe that putting them in the game is not just for show, but it's actually going to help them win games. And we are seeing that time and time again. And yeah, that's wonderful stuff to see. We did the Austin Columbus game in the brand new stadium down there in Austin. What were your initial thoughts on the stadium? And then I'll give you mine. What's it called? I forgot what it was called.
Q2 Stadium.
Q2 Stadium down there in Austin, Texas.
Incredible atmosphere. The only thing missing is the chance to celebrate a goal, because their first two home games there have been 0-0. But I have to say that Austin Columbus game was one of the more fun 0-0s I've covered in a long time. It was end-to-end action. You just kept thinking, man, if they ever do score a goal, this place is going to erupt. So I found it great atmosphere, great stadium, and just thoroughly enjoyable.
Yeah, I mean, look, we've talked about this Austin's team and the phenomenon that we've seen many times over the years in Major League Soccer, where you're opening up a new stadium, and so you're spending a lot of the beginning of the year and oftentimes multiple games in a row playing on the road, and then you bring it back to that stadium, and everything is supposed to be great, and you're supposed to amass points. The problem for Austin is that their long road stand was actually good. They got a point per game, which set them up. But now they can't score goals and they can't find wins in this new stadium. Two games, 2-0-0 results. We actually have them again this week as they face Portland. So we get another bite at the apple. They get another bite at the apple. But to your point, the environment was incredible. The pictures, the way that the cameras are picking up was wonderful. I love how close the fans are. And, it's this evolution of stadia in Major League Soccer and everybody trying to one-up themselves. And, that it was against Columbus. It's built-in storylines, right? Built-in narratives, given the history and given, all the consternation. And, as we came on air talking about it, because, we don't want to avoid the elephant in the room. And that is the fact that they have this history and that the fan bases don't like each other, and certainly don't like the leadership when it comes to each other, given the way that this unfolded. And yet, namaste, people. Okay, both teams ended out looking great, and everything worked out in the end. Okay, and I came on air and I said the best thing that ever happened to Columbus was Austin coming along. Now, that doesn't mean that there wasn't pain along the way. That doesn't mean that I don't recognize and respect all of the effort that it took, and all of the the real problems, and like I said, the pain that everybody went through. But you're looking at Columbus right now, and because of the situation with Austin, you became relevant. You were able to get new local ownership, Ohio ownership. Which ultimately resulted in a better team, which resulted in an MLS Cup, which resulted in a brand new stadium, which resulted in new and much more important types of sponsorships, which resulted in a new training situation. And from an MLS perspective, Austin is a very attractive market. You got a team in Austin with a new stadium, with a new training facility, all that kind of stuff. So it all worked out in the end, and so I'm happy for that. And the environment that they have created already, to your point, Mosse, it's incredible. It just needs that goal, and who knows what it's going to look like when that ball finally goes in the net. And by the way, to the Columbus folks out there, you're opening your new stadium this week too, and it's going to be awesome. And I can't wait to visit it. And you should celebrate it, and you should reflect, and you should be incredibly proud of all the work and the belief and the pride that went into making that happen. And I can't wait to see it. and you got a really good team. So we'll look forward to both of those things happening, and the ability for everybody to kind of explode and celebrate and see what that looks like for the first time ever from an MLS perspective in that Austin stadium. But from a competitive perspective, they got to get these wins, and they got to start amassing points, because this 1 point type of stuff at home, that's not going to fly in a very competitive conference and trying to make the playoffs for the first time, which is the goal for any type of expansion team. Let's see what else, Mosse. How about that Thiago stunner down there in for NYCFC? And when I say NYCFC, I mean in New Jersey, in Harrison, New Jersey, at Red Bull Arena, to beat DC United right at the death.
I am no longer Ian Joy's favorite Brazilian. Ian and I were texting up a storm about this kid on Sunday night. Yeah, amazing story. We've talked about this pipeline of young Brazilians, but all the focus had been on Brenner to Cincinnati and Thales Magno, another young Brazilian who NYCFC signed to great fanfare. And instead, it's this kid that's grabbing all the headlines. They got him from Bahia, and he has 2 goals in 2 games for them. And yeah, just an incredible last gasp winner here as they rally to beat DC United. So yeah, very excited to see that for sure.
It was excited. And look, Ian Joy can get excited at the, watching a turtle cross the road. Okay. And he can make it exciting. And I loved listening to his call and to his reaction. And it deserved. You couldn't help but be excited to see that type of stuff happen. And the speed in which that he got down the other end of the field, and then the wherewithal to bring it back. That was wonderful to see. Up there in Cascadia, up there in Portland, the Loons came in and got themselves a very, very nice 1-0 win over the Timbers up in a very hot Cascadia. I mean, last time I checked, it went up to 109 or something like that. They even pushed the game back to just try to make it as cool as possible. But it was hot. It was hot in terms of the environment and the weather, and it was hot on the field. It's a great win for the Loons to be able to come into to Portland. And the big story coming out of there is, and as we come on the air right now, nothing more has been said or nothing more has happened. But there is an ongoing investigation up there. Because there was a moment in the game where Diego Chara of the Timbers just stopped, and obviously something was going on. We didn't know what was going on. We come to find out that there was an allegation of something that was a derogatory type of racial comment that was alleged out there. Now, the game continued on. And, there's all sorts of questions. And Giovanni Savarese, who I love and respect, the coach of the Timbers, came out after the game and, said he was very disappointed in the way that it was all handled, although he didn't really say what should have been done differently. Here's ultimately the way that I look at it. The referee in the moment recognized that something had happened. Okay. Didn't gloss over it, recognized that something had happened. He stopped the game, which in and of itself recognizes that something has happened. He communicated. He communicated with the players. He communicated with the coaches. He communicated with his other referees to let everybody know why it was stopping and why we were having this moment. Also, to try to garner as much information as he possibly could, but without any direct information and clarification and proof in that moment that something had happened, and he didn't get that. There's nothing necessarily that he can do. Now, the investigation is going to happen, and the statements have come out, and we'll let that investigation continue on. But I know that was the big talking point when it comes to that game. And obviously, Chara thought that he heard something. I don't doubt that in the least, in the way that he reacted. It just remains to be seen whether something actually was said. But I know that the referee crew was getting some blowback and some criticism for how they handled. And yet, when I see this criticism, I don't see anybody actually saying what they should have done. I actually think they followed protocol and that they handled a very difficult situation in the best way that they possibly could. And ultimately, when it comes to the game, that's a bad result for Portland. Okay, against a loon team that came into Portland. So good result for the Loons. 3 points on the road. Anything on that game, Mosse?
Yeah, obviously, I mean, it's tough to transition back to soccer after everything you just said, but obviously if anything was said, then that's horrible and then completely uncalled for. Minnesota unbeaten in 6. So after a rough start to the season, they've gotten going.
They're getting it together. They're getting it together up there. And, speaking of unbeaten, and we're up there in Cascadia anyway, although it wasn't necessarily the result that they wanted because they're playing against the Whitecaps, the Seattle Sounders ended up continuing to be unbeaten, although with a point at home, it's kind of going to feel like a loss. But they continue to get points, and they continue to be very, very good. And the ability for Seattle to adjust through this year, despite being down men and situation, I mean, it's a credit to that team. And as we said, it's a credit to Brian Schmetzer and everything that he does. Anything from up there, Mosse?
No, I mean, as you mentioned, this is actually a disappointing result. This is one of the few times this season where they missed Fry in goal because Cleveland did make a mistake. And also they missed Lodero and his inventiveness against a bunker down Vancouver defense at the end of that game. So, but yeah, I mean, they're still, atop the supporter shield standing. So nothing to get too crazy about.
And then Sporting KC, they beat LAFC. I mean, LAFC right now is not a good team. Okay. It has the potential of being a good team. And so a lot of people are questioning whether they should continue on with Bob Bradley, one of the architects of this team, and has this incredibly successful run come to an end. And would they be better transitioning away? As I said before, I think Bob Bradley is going to have a real long leash, and I think that is absolutely appropriate and fair for who he is as a coach in this moment, what he has meant. And I know it's what have you done for me lately, but I think that they are going to give him the opportunity to fix this situation. Can it be fixed? I mean, if you haven't fixed it by now, then there's something going on. But I think he'll be given at least to the end of this year to figure out a way to fix it before they even contemplate making a change. And speaking of changes, there's a whole lot more screaming and yelling when it comes to our friends in the Great White North, who not are actually in the Great White North right now when it comes to Toronto FC and Chris Armas right now, which is a complete disaster. And I think he would say as such. It certainly has not gone as he planned in terms of the results, in terms of the situation right now. And there's a lot of people saying that this new coach is in over his head and that a change should happen. I think it's much more likely that a change happens in Toronto than a change happens in LAFC. Anything on those, Mosse?
No, I agree. LAFC 12 points dropped from winning position, so they got to get that sorted. But Bob Bradley's earned enough currency there where he definitely deserves more time. On Sporting KC, another good performance for Gianluca Buzio. I know he's been linked with every Italian club at this point, but the latest is Venezia, which would be kind of neat. That was a great story from this past season. Venezia earning promotion to Serie A for the first time in 20 years. That's a club run by Americans. I went to Venice for the first time in my life a couple of years ago, loved it. And so the idea that there's, on top of everything else that city has going for it, there's going to be a Serie A team playing there. When they earned promotion, they celebrated in the Grand Canal. And so I'd actually love to see that if Buzio is going to go to Italy. I mean, Venezia would not be a bad destination for him.
Yeah, but give it time, because by the time you're listening to this, there might be another 5 or 6 teams that he's been associated. I mean, literally every time I turn on Twitter or something like that, there's another rumor about where he's going, and I mean, it's even gone down where this money has been agreed to, and then this money has not been agreed to. So it's all over the map. I mean, look, it's a good situation for him, and it's a good situation for Sporting KC, and this should not be a surprise. He has been touted, he has performed, and so this move somewhere has always been in the works. It's just a matter of where he is ultimately going to go. Anything else MLS wise, Mosse?
One last thing, the first match of the weekend, we did an FS1. Orlando came from behind to beat Inter Miami 2-1. They just showed David Beckham at the England-Germany game, and it might seem like he was having a good time, but what you could tell what was really weighing on his mind was Rodolfo Pizarro's fitness. I mean, he seemed very concerned about that.
I mean, we did our power rankings over the week here, and as you can imagine, with what is going on with Inter Miami, they plummeted because this is not good. They have yet to win at home, and they have a real problem, and they're not starting 2 designated players. And it is, we were talking about this on the on the MLS broadcast the other day. And this is something that's happened over the years. And I've seen it plenty of times where a MLS team comes to the realization, and at times it's the unfortunate realization, that they possibly could be better without the designated players on the field than with them on the field. Now, I don't know if Coach Neville down there is at that point, but he's not starting designated players in the form of Higuain and Pizarro. And although Higuain did come on the field and score a goal, it's just it is a mess down there, and not something that he or his boss and owner David Beckham probably anticipated. But they got to fix it because they should be much, much better. What are you looking at, Mosse? What do you see? What's happening?
1-0 England. Raheem Sterling has just scored. They just cut to the box. You had Prince William, Kate Middleton, David Beckham all celebrating. So exciting times. I'm sure Warren Barton, wherever he's watching this, is flipping out.
So it's England, coming home then.
15 minutes
home,
away.
Right? It's coming home. Oh my goodness. Well, I told I had tweeted out earlier today that the battle between those that want England to win and those that want England, or those that want Germany to win and those that want England to lose, is real, and it's that human element right now. But there's a lot of people that want England to win, and not just the English, to kind of get this moment when we talk so much about checking things off and kind of getting past from a mental perspective things that you have. So, it could change, and it's very likely going to change, but so far so good, right?
Germany have just earned a free kick in a very dangerous position. So, but let's keep our focus on the pod.
All right. Well, listen, that's enough from an MLS perspective. When we come back, we're going to take a real quick break. And when we come back, we will be talking about the Euros and Copa America and some other things that are happening out there, because we are at the business end, shall we say, of the tournament, no longer in the group stage. So don't go anywhere. All right, we are back. And as Mosse said, we are live watching this Germany-England game. England right now up 1-0, but still some time to play. So it'll play out while we are doing this pod. But there are also plenty of other games that have happened. And let's be honest, some incredible games and some big surprises in terms of your big teams that are out. I'm hard pressed to find a better Monday, if you will, of soccer than Monday the 28th, and the craziness that we saw when it came to the Euros. Mosse, is that where you want to start?
Absolutely. Thought it was one of the great days in any major international tournament. 14 goals in 2 games. You had momentum swings, heroes, villains, drama, everything you could ask for. I know there's an AskAlexi question about what's better, international football or club football. And the guy that asked the question said he prefers international football. And he certainly picked a good week to raise that issue. I don't know which game you want to do first, but
let's actually go just back to yesterday. We were recording on Tuesday, like we said. So back to yesterday, where you had, these crazy games that ended in regulation 3-3, and ultimately France goes out and Croatia goes out. But the way in which it happened, Spain was not getting a lot of attention. And let's start with that one, the Spain-Croatia game. And evidently, I think Rob Stone was saying 3-1, most dangerous score in at least in Euros. When it comes to this tournament. What'd you think of the Spain-Croatia game, Mosse?
I was completely wrong about Spain. I was down on them heading into this tournament, but they've played some very good football. They've been thoroughly superior in every game. They gifted Croatia an opening goal, that huge blunder by Simon, who, by the way, redeemed himself, because later on he made some great saves, including one on Kramaric in extra time. Another Spain player who redeemed himself is Morata, who had been getting death threats because of his missed chances, which is obviously ridiculous. But he scored a great goal in extra time. And they've really uncovered a star in Pedri. He's at the heart of everything good that they do. And so I thought they deserved it on balance over the 120 minutes. And just an incredible match. But Spain takes it and they move on to the quarterfinals.
Better team moved on, you think?
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Well, that's kind of what we want. I mean, when it comes to Switzerland and France, obviously, the final, France loses on penalties to Switzerland. Now, we had seen this Switzerland team a couple weeks ago playing against the U.S., and I remember talking about it where this is a good team, and this is a team that turned it on through that game in just a friendly type of situation, and that you could see some of the quality, and they're bringing it to bear, not only getting out of their group, but obviously in penalties, beating the world champions. Did you see this coming, Mosse?
No, this was absolutely stunning. The amazing thing about both games yesterday is that in both games, the better team had a 3-1 lead with less than 10 minutes left in regulation. You thought, okay, it's over. If anything, the floodgates have opened and they're going to tack on more goals. And in both instances, the underdog scored twice in the last few minutes to force extra time, which is mind-boggling. And this game, I mean, Switzerland miss a penalty to go up 2-0, and then France come right back. Benzema scores twice, then Pogba tacks on a third with an incredible long-distance strike. And Pogba, by the way, had an amazing tournament. He really showed that on his day, he can be the best midfielder in the world. And man, at 3-1, it's France, it's Switzerland. You think the party's over. And for Switzerland to come back and score twice. And by the way, had another goal that was ruled out for very tight offside. And then they take it to extra time, and they hold out extra time. It goes to penalties. Mbappe misses the decisive penalty. And it really is, on the world stage, the first major setback in his career. Now, I read the French media every day, so he has gotten criticism after some of these PSG Champions League exits for going missing in some of these big PSG Champions League matches. But from a global perspective, Neymar bears the brunt of that, and Mbappe actually benefits from being on the same team as Neymar, so that when PSG go out in the Champions League, it becomes more about a Neymar failure than Mbappe. So really, on the world stage, this is, for a kid that's been anointed by me and many others as the second coming, the next guy that's going to take the baton from Messi and Ronaldo and dominate for the next decade. This is his first big major setback of his career on the world stage, and we'll see how he handles it. He is getting demolished. He had a lousy game. He had a bad miss in extra time, that left-footed finish after a great through ball from Pogba, and then, of course, he misses the decisive penalty saved by Sommer. So, Mbappe comes out of this as the villain. Fair or not, he's taking the brunt of the abuse in the French media.
All right, so before we move on to the previous day, was it in particular the France game, because you have your world champions going out of the tournament, was this more that France was bad or Switzerland was good?
Yeah, I don't want to take any credit away from Switzerland, particularly since their coach, Vladimir Petkovic, is a dead ringer for Frank Drebin from the Naked Gun movies, which are my favorite. I know you don't like those movies, which is one of your worst takes ever.
They're
but
ridiculous.
Every time I see that guy, I think of
they are horrible.
Frank Drebin, Police Squad.
There's nothing funny, remotely funny about them.
And by the way, that guy speaks like 8 languages. He puts Kate Abdo to shame. So
he would have been better in the Naked Gun movies. Okay, I would have preferred him. Okay. Let's go back to Belgium 1, Portugal 0. Goodbye, Portugal. Goodbye, Cristiano. Shouldn't necessarily be a surprise, although you were all over this Portugal team. And they're still a very, very good team, and they came up against a Belgium that there's plenty of people out there that have picked Belgium. But thoughts on this game?
Well, there's been a little theme here. I know it's sort of cliche for fans to complain about managers being too pragmatic. And invariably, when you do that, there are others that come in and say, no, in tournament play, that's how you got to be. And it's about churning out results. But we saw a coach here in Fernando Santos, who Portugal played a certain way in 2016. It worked. So he decided, well, we're going to try that again. But there was different personnel this time, and you were left with this feeling that with the players he had this time around, they could have been more adventurous. You think of the guys that have emerged since the last Euros, like Bernardo Silva, João Felix, Bruno Fernandes, and obviously Ronaldo's still there. And so I expected more from this Portugal team. I was disappointed in the way they played in this tournament. And to go back to France for a second, the other manager that came under criticism is Didier Deschamps, who you would think winning a World Cup would be a debate ender. But no, there's still this notion that that France team with all the players they have isn't all it could be. That Deschamps is essentially a guy that owns a Ferrari and drives it like a Mazda, and he gets you where you need to go, but you end up feeling like, boy, I was just in a Ferrari. That should have been a more exciting ride. And there's something about the way he manages that team where you feel like he's holding them back a little bit. And the other manager, frankly, who was in danger of coming under that sort of criticism is Gareth Southgate. We'll talk in a minute about all the talented players he left on the England bench today, but he's 5 minutes away from being vindicated. So, but that's been sort of a general theme in this tournament. I think Portugal definitely fit into that. If people feel like Fernando Santos didn't make the most of all his attacking talent.
Okay, then our good friend Frank de Boer and the Netherlands bomb out against the Czech Republic here. Surprise?
Well, only because they had a very good group stage. They won all 3 games, so you felt like they were rolling. But it's not hugely surprising. I mean, they're not that good. And Czech Republic get another goal from Patrick Schick, who everyone's joking he's going to be the winner of the James Rodriguez Award this summer. The guy whose value is overinflated by a great performance in an international tournament. So yeah, the Czech Republic move on. Netherlands crash out, and I think I saw news today. Maybe Jeff Hernandez can confirm. Frank de Boer is out as Netherlands coach. They've already announced.
Yes. The only question is, he says he's walking away, and others say that he was fired. Either way, he's out. Yeah.
Although he'll no doubt get hired by like Real Madrid next week because
exactly
that guy has mastered the art of falling up.
All right. Well, speaking of masters, it seems that Harry Kane has just scored 2. So now we're 2-0 England.
Surely now England
it's
are off.
Definitely coming home, right? They're going crazy. It's wonderful scenes. Although they booed the national anthem. And look, you certainly are entitled to boo another country's national anthem, but you're an ass if you do it. I mean, let's be honest. So that was lame. But from an England perspective, I think he's onside. Looks onside to me. Yep. Heads it in. It's got to be over. Grealish, you put Grealish on, you see what happens, right? Okay. And there, Harry Kane, who did nothing for most of the game, but typical striker, right? You put the ball in the back of the net, and that's all anybody really cares about. Okay, Mosse, let's see. Italy, it's hard to say that Italy is a surprise of the tournament, but the way in which they played, although even in this game, there was a moment there where we were left saying, what have you done with our 2021 version of Italy? It almost seems that in real time, they regressed back to this boring, unimaginative, defensive type of Italy. And then they kind of flicked a switch and came back to life and reanimated, if you will. 2-1 against Austria.
Yeah, Italy is so impressive in the group stage. You thought they would roll here, but they got a major scare from Austria. Needed extra time. Chiesa comes up with a big goal, then Pessina gets the second one. So yeah, Italy, they dodged the bullet here, but they move on, which I'm happy to see because I do like this Italy team.
And then the feel-good story of the tournament in a certain way, Denmark 4-0, just completely trouncing Wales and continuing their story that started out so awful with the Ericsson situation, and they just keep rolling, and they got a good matchup in Wales, and so it shouldn't be necessarily a major surprise, but it was emphatic.
Yeah, you said it. They are now the feel-good story of this tournament because of that horrible episode with Ericsson, and so very glad to see that. There are now questions about Gareth Bale's international career, whether this was it for him with Wales. We know all the questions at club level, so we'll see what happens with him, but Denmark move on. Do we want to sort of treat this England game like it's over? And
yeah, let's treat it like it's over. Okay.
Yeah. So listen, I was talking to Warren Barton and Keith Costigan this morning, and when the lineup comes out, I joked, I've never seen that much talent on an England bench, because he left Sancho, Foden, Mount, Rashford, Grealish. And I know with Mount, there was a situation with Billy Gilmore and the COVID, and so there was an explanation there, but all the other ones were just coaching decisions. And the starting 11 didn't look all that exciting. So you wonder, man, did he go too pragmatic here? But hey, I guess when you win, you're vindicated, and they're up 2-0 in the 90th minute. So it looks like England are going to get a massive victory over Germany. This will be it for Jogi Löw. Hansi Flick will take over immediately after this tournament. And England will move on to the quarterfinals. And you got to be looking at this bracket because they will face in the quarterfinals either Sweden or Ukraine. And then if they get to the semis, it'd be Czech Republic or Denmark. And by the way, the semifinals and finals are at Wembley. So they got to get through a quarterfinal, which is in Rome, but then the last 2 games would be at home. So it might be coming home. This is really actually breaking nicely for them.
Wow, you're just completely setting them up for failure. That is the kiss of death. Yeah, I mean, they have to be looked at as, one of the favorites, although your Belgians would certainly have something to say about that and the way that Spain is playing right now. Okay, yes, this is done. And to your point about Gareth Southgate, I mean, this is an affirmation. This is, I think, a seminal moment for him in being able to do this. And he's taken plenty of criticism. I mean, not that Twitter is a focus group, but I woke up and there was just tweet after tweet of people disagreeing with his 11. But I think that's more to your point about the amount of talent and depth that this England team has at its disposal. But when you win, people shut up, at least for a little bit. And more importantly, when you beat Germany, people will really shut up, giving the problems that Germany has posed over the years. So congratulations to England on a massive, massive victory. And it's I don't want to say it's theirs to lose, but it's theirs to lose. Okay. Anything else, Mosse?
Well, just very quickly, the quarterfinals. So it's Belgium, Italy in Munich. That should be a phenomenal game. Switzerland, Spain in one of our favorite cities, St. Petersburg, Russia. And then England will face either Sweden or Ukraine in Rome. And then the Czech Republic and Denmark will square off in Baku. And then, as I mentioned, the semifinals and final are at Wembley.
All right, let's transition into Copa America. We got done with the group stage last night, which was, kind of a much more of a things had kind of been decided. And when it came to watching games, it was fun to see Messi and company beat up on Bolivia, and Messi with a couple of goals and just kind of having fun, albeit against a team that was already out of the tournament and is not very good, even in normal circumstances. But we have our quarterfinals. So we have Peru, Paraguay, Brazil, Chile, Uruguay, Colombia, and Argentina, Ecuador. As we stand here with these quarterfinals, Mosse, what has stood out to you when it comes to this tournament?
Well, you and Stu Holden had a fascinating debate on television last night.
Well, that's debatable. Even that's debatable.
Who is more dependent on their big star, Brazil or Argentina? What would it look like if you took Neymar off Brazil and Messi off Argentina? And it's fascinating because in both cases, the big star is being asked to play deeper than they ever have before, and to really dictate play from the midfield and be the person creating all the chances. But that means they can't always be up there to be the ones to put it away. And so you're sort of relying on other players to emerge and to be able to finish off these plays. And both teams have struggled with that. Brazil are still searching for an answer at center forward. We've seen Firmino, we've seen Gabigol, we've seen Richarlison, Gabriel Jesus, and nobody's really taken hold of that position. Similar with Argentina, although Lautaro Martinez finally broke his duck last night against Bolivia. And so, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, do you want to share your thoughts on that? I thought it was a really interesting conversation.
Yeah, I mean, my point to Stu was that I think that if you take Neymar off of Brazil and you take Messi off of Argentina, that Brazil is still a much higher functioning type of group. And so therefore, I think that Argentina is much more reliant on what Messi brings game in, game out than what Neymar brings. Obviously, you want to have them both on the field. And to your point, they've both kind of not come to the realization, because you shouldn't take any type of a realization to understand that having the ball at the foot of Neymar or Messi is a good thing. But yes, they have dropped back and in different ways. But, for example, when Messi drops back into that lower type of position now with this Argentine setup right now, it's almost as if he's like a quarterback, right? Pulling back into that pocket and then having everything in front of him and being able to check off all the different things. Am I going to go throw here? I'm going to throw here, in the same way that Messi says, all right, am I going to play it here? Am I going to play it long? Am I going to combination play? Or am I going to, am I going to run the ball, right? And for Messi, it'll be run with the ball. So of the two, I think that Messi is, more suited and more comfortable to that drop-off type of position. I don't want Neymar doing what Messi does. But yes, I do think that Argentina is much more dependent This Argentina team is much more dependent on Messi than the Brazil team is dependent on Neymar.
I think from the run of play offensively, they would both look equally labored without their big star. I guess the slight edge for Brazil, and we've talked about this before on this podcast, would be they're more solid defensively, and I think they're better on set pieces. So they might be more equipped to grind out a result without Neymar than Argentina would be without Messi. But obviously, we hope it doesn't come to that with either team because we want to see both those guys playing. Brazil and Argentina ended up on opposite sides of the bracket. That's the final everyone is hoping for. In terms of their paths, I would say Brazil have the tougher quarterfinal match. Argentina face Ecuador while Brazil take on Chile, which is a very interesting game. Chile, they will have had a long layoff here. They went back to Santiago. Some people think that takes you sort of out of the rhythm of the competition. Others think, no, it'll give those older legs some rest, the Vargas and Vidals and Aranguiz, and there's still an outside chance they get Alexis Sanchez back for that game. And so to me, it's a scary opponent. I'm actually nervous about that game. Now, if Brazil get through that game, they would face either Peru or Paraguay in the semis, while Argentina would face either Uruguay or Colombia in their semis. So I would think there Argentina have the tougher game. But I mean, is that the final you're projecting? Did you come away from this group stage thinking those two are clearly ahead of the pack?
Yeah, I think that Brazil is clearly the top. I think that Argentina, as long as Messi is playing, is the right below, and then I think there's everyone else. With regards to these matchups, I disagree a little bit in that I think that Chile is a fine matchup for Brazil because I don't think that Chile can adjust. They are who they are, and the problem with them right now is the way that they have played and the way that they have, I guess, branded themselves to the world, especially over the last 10 years, is not to suck up pressure, is not to bunker in, is not to park the bus. And so they're going to play and they're going to feel that they can play. The problem is, and we said it time again, is those legs and this generation, this golden generation, is not what it once was. And so just because you think that you can do something doesn't mean that your body can actually back that up. And I think that's going to give space to Brazil to be able to work. I absolutely agree with you that Brazil, from a semifinal perspective, either playing Peru or Paraguay, and by the way, Paraguay going forward could possibly not have Miguel Almiron, who went off hurt, and that's a real big loss for them, how important he is. But it's Brazil, once they get past, or if they get past Chile, then I think that then it's a home sailing into the final.
And Ricardo Gareca, the Peru coach, continues to do a phenomenal job. He got them to the 2018 World Cup for the first time in 36 years, gets them to the 2019 Copa America final, and here they are again. They finished second in that group behind Brazil. No Paulo Guerrero, no Rui Diaz. He's got Gianluca Lapadula, the Italian-born striker, leading the attack, and yet they keep finding ways to get results under him. Yeah, the latest in Almiron I was just reading is he hasn't been completely ruled out for Friday, but they said it's highly unlikely he'll be able to play. Uruguay, Colombia, interesting one. Cuadrado suspended for that game, which hurts. Uruguay, not all that inspiring in the group stage. What do you make of that team with Suarez, Cavani, and company?
I mean, last night I was asking the question, are we expecting too much? And, given the fact that this is a team with Suarez and Cavani and with a history of success, I don't think we are, but who knows? Maybe we are. I don't think that they have any team speed. I don't think that they have any creativity when it comes to that midfield. But to your point about Cuadrado, which is basically their number 10, even though he operates from wide, that is a huge loss for Colombia. But this isn't a great Uruguay team.
Yeah, Facundo Torres is the one player that has shown a little something for me in terms of the young Uruguayans and but inject some creativity into that team. So hopefully he gets more minutes in the knockout stage. A couple of final notes on Brazil, Argentina. Very happy to see Papu Gomez emerge at this tournament. I know it's weird to be talking about a guy in his 30s as a breakout player, but he hasn't played much for them over the years. And so he's finally getting a chance at this tournament and showing what a good player he is. We talk about Argentina trying to find some scoring outside of Messi. He scored twice in the group stage. So he's a guy that's emerging. Be interesting to see if he starts in the knockout stage. And then, one last Brazil point that I find sort of vexing, and I'm curious to get your take on this. Brazil, for many, many years, were willing to make this trade-off because they had these real game-breaking players at the fullback positions, the Cafu, Roberto Carlos, Dani Alves, Marcelo. They were more conservative with their midfield choices because they needed their midfielders to cover the space that those fullbacks left behind. So they valued defensive range over playmaking ability in those central midfield positions. And when Chichi took over, and certainly at the start of this cycle, he made a big point of saying, well, we're going to change that. I'm going to keep the fullbacks back a little bit. And I'm going to try to pick more expansive players in those midfield positions. And I think Brazil sort of ended up with neither at this point, because Alexandre and Danilo, to me, are the weakest starting fullbacks Brazil have had in decades. They don't offer that much going forward. And then you have Fred as one of those central midfielders who's really more of a defensive player, doesn't offer that much going forward either. So, I mean, they're just not getting a lot from those positions. And to bring it back to our main point, it just puts even more pressure on Neymar to have to create everything. So, I mean, when you watch this Brazil team, are you surprised about how little you've grown up your whole life watching Brazil with these marauding fullbacks. Are you surprised at how little they're getting from those positions? And also that Chichi is not being a little bit more adventurous with those two central midfielder spots. And so the end result is you end up with a Brazil team that actually doesn't have that many different weapons. It really is just relying on Neymar creating for those two or three players up there.
It's the cost of pragmatism. I mean, look, we say it time and time again that no South American team has won a World Cup since 2002. And Chichi has been very, very open about wanting to have this team be more solid defensively. And so if you're going to do that, you are limiting risk. And yet we associate risk with courage and with beauty and with creativity and with flair. And, our friend Hernan Crespo, you had pointed out that he wrote an article lamenting what he sees as the loss of flair when it comes to South American soccer. But it's a risk reward type of situation. So what's the thing that we talk about this Brazil and have been talking about this Brazil team since this tournament started? That they are much more solid defensively and they are built to withstand. Well, in order to do that, how are you going to get the other side, which is the beauty and the, jogo bonito, whatever type of situation that once again, this team has branded themselves over the year as? And is it a betrayal? Is it a betrayal to you and so many Brazil fans who have an expectation that you are going to go forward, that there are going to be players with flair, that are going to be risk taken? And there's a belief that it is worth that risk. And if the only risk and the only flair is Neymar, is that good enough? I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but I did something last night. It'll be out in a little bit about how much romance are you willing to take? Because you have to be willing, if you are a romantic, to lose. And in the loss, be true to whatever romantic notion you are attached to. And when it comes to Brazil, when it comes to Argentina, when it comes to South American players and teams in general, there is this romance that has been associated with them. And when they become pragmatic, and there's a reason why teams become pragmatic, is because it works. Okay. Will you accept that because you're getting the results? I don't know. I mean, I think it's different when you're talking about a Paraguay versus a Brazil, but I don't think it's changing anytime soon, Mosse, because those players that you mentioned on those outside backs and that history of outside backs going forward, they're not walking through this door right now.
Yeah, we can end on this. I remain steadfast in my belief that the gap between Brazil and everybody else is not as big as it's been made out to be. I think people have created an imaginary monster here. I know the numbers look impressive for Brazil, but they've played an easy schedule. And so I think the numbers are more impressive than the team actually is if you watch them. It's funny, my entire life of following sports, whenever a coach is asked about the prospect of facing a certain team, they always say, well, we'll play whoever. We're not afraid of anybody. And somehow at this Copa America, it's become completely acceptable for players and managers to openly talk about wanting to avoid Brazil and we don't want to face Brazil. And you'd think they were talking about like the 1970 or the 1982 team. I mean, to me, it's such a pedestrian Brazil team that everybody's afraid to face. So, and yeah, I know they're home, but it's empty stadium. So I don't even know if that matters that much. So I don't know, that's been like a weird subplot in this tournament for me. I think Chile have more than a puncher's chance. I'm actually quite nervous about that game. I know you disagree, but I I don't know. I don't think this Brazil team is as
Wow.
strong as everybody.
Debbie Downer for Brazil there, Mosse. Wow. I'm much more optimistic about your Brazil team than you are. Anyway, we will see what happens. We got quarterfinals happening on Friday. So Friday's Peru and Paraguay, and also Brazil and Chile, like we mentioned. And then on Saturday, it's Uruguay, Colombia, and Argentina, Ecuador. So check all those out. Anything else, Mosse?
That's it.
Ask Alexi just around the corner. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're back, and it's time for Ask Alexi. Use that hashtag. And as you know, we have our hotline, which has been hot, and people calling in and leaving us messages. And we really appreciate those of you that do. As we said many times, not everybody is on social media, and this gives an opportunity for everybody, but including those that aren't maybe on social media, to be involved in the show. And that's 657-549-2297. That's 657-549-2297. We have a couple of calls this week, Mosse, from some different folks here. Who's first?
I think we're going William first.
Okay, what does William have to say? Let's listen to him and what he has to say.
Hey, Alexi, Mosse, this is William from Indiana. I had a simple question for both of you. Which do you enjoy watching more, club soccer or international soccer? And Alexi, maybe from your perspective, which one did you get more excited to play in? I'll say that I like international soccer a little bit more. Through my youth, I didn't know a whole lot about soccer, and then I got introduced to it more in the 2010 World Cup, and I've been hooked ever since, both as a MLS fan and as a U.S. fan. So just wanted to get your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Oh, all right. Well, this makes perfect sense then, and it's part of what we've been talking about here, right? Club and country. I don't know about you, Mosse. I like the international game, and I prefer the international game. I understand what club brings, and there's some wonderful aspects of it, but the way that the international game kind of transcends all of the money and contracts and trades and transfers and all that kind of stuff. And it is, in a certain way, a great equalizer. You have incredible players who for club play in a certain situation. And when they go to the national team, it's a very different situation and different dynamic, and they have to adjust. I love that. I love the national type of moment that it is, both for player and for fan. I love, the flags and the anthem and the walkout and the pride and the history involved in the international game. So yeah, I would say for me, both watching and playing. I mean, look, I had a wonderful time playing for all the different teams that I played for, but there was nothing that gave me a greater sense of pride than putting on the American jersey, walking out on that field with that team, putting my hand over my heart, singing that anthem, and then going out and representing what I feel is the greatest country in the world. And I would do it I'm 51 years old today. And if Greg Berhalter said, "Hey, I need you," I would not hesitate in the least. I would give anything to be able to do that again. It's not even the kicking the ball. People ask me, "Do you miss kicking the ball?" I miss being able to represent my country in that way, because it is so unique, and it is it's so powerful, at least for me. That's what I think. What about you, Mosse?
This might seem like a cop-out, but I like the yin and yang of it, which is why I bristle sometimes at these things like the Nations League. I don't think international football should try to compete with club football for relevance 12 months out of the year. I like the fact that it's in small doses, and there's that drama that comes with the finality of this is your chance, and if you fail, it's going to be another 4 years. And so, I think that's what makes international football more dramatic than club football. And so they should preserve that. And there's something special about watching your national team play a big game, because it doesn't happen that often. If they were playing all the time, that, you'd lose a little bit of that luster. So I kind of like, majority of the year, my brain is focused on clubs, but then, you sort of parachute in for these major tournaments, and you can really sort of get immersed in international football. And it's great. I can't deny the pageantry of these international tournaments. What we've seen the last couple of days. I mean, nothing beats it. It's phenomenal.
And look, I recognize the fractured nature of club soccer, right? And the tribalism that exists in our game. But the other thing, and we'll move on after this, but the way that the international game brings people together, and I know it happens from a club perspective, but this happens in a country, and you are supporting a team, and you might be of completely different backgrounds and the way that you think about politics. And I know politics infects a lot of sport and informs a lot of sport, especially nowadays. But the reality is that when the U.S. men's national team or the U.S. women's national team is playing, you are oftentimes surrounded by people, and your connection is this country, okay, and the representation of this country. And you may be completely opposite sides of the political spectrum or any other thing out there. But in this moment, you can come together, and you come together as a country. And especially in our country, which at times can be so divided in the way that we think about things, I like things that are able to bring us together, and that even if just for 90 minutes we can agree upon and cheer and support, and in doing so recognize and respect and revel in our country. I like those things. That's one of the things that I really love about the international game. All right, what's the next question, Mosse?
Next one is from Bill.
All right, let's see what Bill has to say.
Hey, Alexi and Mosse. This is Bill Anderson. Love the podcast. Always polished and entertaining. I'm biased as a native New Englander, but the New England Revolution are a really interesting team this year. Perhaps the league's best keeper, Matt Turner, good depth off the bench, and an interesting mix of young and veteran talent. Recognizing it's still so early in the season, do you think they're punching above their weight at the moment, or do you think they're a top contender for the MLS Cup this year? That's it. Thanks.
All right, Bill. I mean, you're feeling good about your New England Revolution, as you should. And I hope this isn't that we haven't, or that we've ignored the New England Revolution. I don't think we have. I think we've talked about the New England Revolution, but they deserve to be talked about. And we talked a little about in the first segment about what New England is this year, and it's been wonderful. And I think the way that Bruce Arena has come in, and they're sitting at first place, 7-2-2, and the way that Bruce Arena has kind of, this isn't the right way to say it, but dumbed it down isn't right, but made it very, very clear to the players. You can see that they know what he wants, and they are able to do that. And look, Bo and Heel are players that any team in the league would want, and they are performing. Bo with his 5 goals, Gil with his 10 assists. I mean, he is having an MVP type of season right now. This is all great, and I'm knocking on wood, because if you have injuries, if you have problems, that could be a problem. Now, Buxa, who is also a designated player, and we talked about designated players needing to perform. He's got 4 goals, but he's only, I think, started about half the games. So your designated player isn't even necessarily starting. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but you kind of want all of your designated players firing on all cylinders and being able to start for your team. Otherwise, it's kind of a waste of the spot, and it's kind of a waste of money. But you're still getting performance out of him. All of that is to say is that this is a fun team to watch for the first time in a while. Okay, this is a competitive team, regardless of who they are playing, and this is a team that I'm really excited about for that area and what that means to that New England fan base there that hasn't had a lot to scream and yell about when it comes to their team. And this is a team that I think other teams look at and say, oh boy, this is going to consistently be hard. Doesn't mean they're not going to lose games. The New England Revolution isn't going to lose games, but they are rightfully one of the best teams in the league. Now, it should be noted too that from a defensive perspective, when we always say defense wins championships, they're not the top of the league in terms of goals against. Okay, they have a great goalkeeper, and I think that in and of itself shows you how much they are relying on him. But it's not as if they're getting shutout after shutout after shutout. What that means is that because they have a great goalkeeper, and we're continuing to talk about Turner, he's making a lot of saves and very, very good saves and important saves, and yet they are still letting in goals. So that could be a concern going forward. But the results that they're getting, and if they're just going to outscore everybody, that's fine too. And knock on wood, as long as everybody stays healthy, this is going to be, I think, the team to beat in the East, and certainly a team that could find its way to MLS Cup in the way that it's built. What else, Masu? We got anything else?
After 2 voicemails, we'll end with a Twitter question.
Oh, okay.
Jorge Blanco asks, just watched LFG. What's your take?
Oh, so LFG is the new documentary on HBO about the U.S. women's national team and their ongoing legal battle in the courts against the United States Soccer Federation, their employer, relative to equal pay. I watched it the other day. It's about an hour and 45 minutes. Let's see. I think it's incredibly well done in terms of the production and in terms of the way that it was made, in terms of keeping your attention. Having said that, it is quote unquote a documentary, but it is, and probably by design, much more of a promotional type of piece. It is one-sided. The only time that you really get the other side is when the women's own lawyer is explaining what the arguments from the other side is. And that's never going to give you a fair and accurate representation. It should be noted that the documentary comes on air saying that the United States Soccer Federation refused to participate. Now, they also knew that this was coming out, and they tried to get ahead of it, and they had the president, Cindy Parlacone, out doing media and talking about it. They had a tweet storm and a thread that you can read. I retweeted it, going kind of line items about where they felt that people were being disingenuous or just downright misstating the facts relative to what has happened. But as I said, I think that this is a promotional vehicle, okay? And it is designed to put the United States women's national team in the best possible light. And in that sense, it accomplishes it. I mean, it should win a Clio, okay? But as an actual documentary where you are getting a fair and accurate representation, and I know all documentaries to a certain extent come at from different sides, but I think there wasn't the opportunity to see and understand, it's kind of a complex situation, what the other side is, why at times the legal system has decided one way or the other. Megan Rapinoe and company come off looking great, as you would expect. I mean, I love Megan Rapinoe because of the personality that she is and the courage that she has and the way that she is able to use her platform and her megaphone and the media to say what she wants. I don't agree with everything that she says, but I love the fact that that I'm seeing kind of an artist at work in the way that she is able to use and manipulate it to her advantage in a good way. That's not a bad thing. Okay. And Megan's not alone. Okay. The U.S. women's national team long ago won the PR battle, and the court of public opinion was won long ago by the U.S. women. And I think the United States Soccer Federation has actually done a piss poor job of making their case and finding ways. And it's difficult against, because the U.S. women rightfully have a lot of attention and they take up a whole lot of oxygen when it comes to it. I was not impressed with the representation for the women. I didn't think that the attorneys Kessler and Levinson, I think it is, I didn't think that they came off great. And in a production that's designed to kind of make everybody look good, that's not necessarily, that's not necessarily a good thing. But all in all, I think I didn't learn anything new necessarily. I do think that at times, in an effort to make it more dramatic, there was and everything's in the edit, right? But there was kind of a sense of I kept thinking to myself, well, where's the self-awareness? I get it that it takes up time to file a lawsuit. I get it that you have to read a lot of things and you have to immerse yourself in what's going on while you're actually playing soccer. But you still live a charmed life, okay, relative to most people in the world. And so at times, I think it got so dramatic, or attempted to get so dramatic, that there was kind of a loss of the reality of the situation that you had. And that's not, once again, that's not me saying that the fight shouldn't be had, but maybe some perspective was necessary. And again, it's a production. So all in all, check it out. I don't necessarily think those of us that have been around for a while are going to learn a whole lot. And as I said, it's one-sided by design, and it paints the women individually and collectively and their fight in incredibly positive type of way. But we all know that there is a reason why this fight is happening, and there are other arguments out there. And it would have been nice if that was done, to give it some sort of balance, and in doing so, make it, I guess, less shaded or less biased, if you will. Anyway, it's cool. You should check it out. Anything else, Mosse, when it comes to Ask Alexi?
That's it.
Okay. We're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, oh, yes, I will have my one for the road. Don't go anywhere. All right. We are back. We've come to the end of our show. And at the end of each and every show, as you know, we do our one for the road. I got asked a question, and I mentioned it in brief, I think, last week about logos, and we can call them brands, and the rebranding that's happening right now. And we had a leaked, speaking of the New England Revolution, which we talked about in the last segment, we had a leaked New England Revolution brand. Now, I've been around a long time, and I've seen brands come and go. I've been involved in rebrands, in particular with the Los Angeles Galaxy. And as I've said many times, you're never going to please everybody. When I look at this New England Revolution rebrand, and I've tweeted it, and you can find it out there online, if this ends up being the actual thing, it looks pretty good. Now, we know that New England Revolution are the last remaining original brand in the flag logo that they have, and so this would be the end of the original era when it comes to those brands. We've also seen the Chicago brand, which I mentioned really briefly, the rebrand, if you will. And I actually think they did a good job. It looks good. Probably if they had come out with this at the very beginning, both in terms of the aesthetic and the way that they went out of their way to include people and to include fans in the process, it would have been probably more palatable from folks. You're always going to have people that want the original brands, and I get that, especially when it comes to Chicago and that iconic type of brand that has been around since 1998 when they came on as an expansion team. But with that going away, this new one that they've come out with, and you can see it, I've tweeted it. It's good. And as I said, it's a result of their initial rebrand, which did not go over well, both in terms of the aesthetic and the lack of input that we had. I would have been really interested to see, had the original rebrand for Chicago involved the input that the rebrand had, what the take was, because your perception of something changes and can change dramatically when you are involved. And that, if anything, is a lesson to all the teams out there. If you want to go it on your own, then you damn well better be sure that what you're coming up with is good. Okay? Because even if you think it's good, the fact that people haven't been involved in the process is going to sway how they see something. And so at times, is it just lip service that you're giving? Yes, but there is a value to it, okay? And at least having people believe that they are part of the process. And I think at times, while I talk a lot about business and business decisions, and I am firmly in support of capitalism and businesses doing what they feel is appropriate for their customers. I'm in the middle of I just finished a podcast about New Coke. And I think I've talked about it before, but it's a really, really interesting deep dive into how a brand goes about changing the brand and how that perception is so important. And the involvement or the lack of involvement of your customer, in this case, it would be your fans, is crucial to how they ultimately view. So much so that, for example, in the Coke situation, their testing told them, and it bared out time after time after time, that the new Coke was better tasting. People preferred it, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter because of what you put it in. And the lack of input and the lack of connection that people had. So going forward, because we're going to see more rebrands at different times, and we saw it over in Columbus where they raised their hand and they said, we messed up, and they tried to incorporate people in. And it shouldn't be something that you need to be taught. But when it comes out that you haven't included anybody and included your customers in these decisions that you make, and you're going to go it alone, as I said, you better be damn sure that it is good. And don't be surprised at all when what your data or your research has told you is good is looked at very, very differently in the real world by ultimately your customers. But check them out. So they are interesting, and they are probably stories in and of themselves, maybe even some podcasts in and of themselves about how the Chicago brand happened, or how the Columbus brand happened, or how about if this new New England Revolution brand happens and what it coincides with going forward. Mosse, anything before we head out?
I know this is completely out of context, but I forgot to mention we were talking about the Euros, that Belgium-Italy quarterfinal. Eden Hazard and Kevin De Bruyne are evidently unlikely to play in that game due to injuries, so that might swing it in favor of Italy. Although, who needs Eden Hazard when you have Thorgan Hazard?
Exactly. We got the better Hazard to some, right?
And by the way, folks, if you're listening at home, feel free to send in an Ask Alexi next week about UEFA doing away with the away goals rule, because otherwise I'm not sure where we're going to get that in this in these podcasts, but I do want to talk about that because that was actually big news that came down in the last few days.
We will talk about that next week, one way or another, whether it's a question or not. I guarantee that we will talk about that because I want to hear it. Now, it's a hell of a tease, Mosse. I love it. I love it. All right, listen, thank everybody for tuning in. As always, we appreciate you understanding that we are traditionally, we record on Monday and it's out Tuesday. Now we're recording on Tuesday and it's out Wednesday. I hope that you will forgive us. And at some point later on in the summer, when we get through these tournaments, it'll probably change back. But we love that you listen. We love that you subscribe. We love that you review and rate and do all the different things out there. And we hope that you keep doing it, because we're going to keep doing it. We will talk again next week right here on the State of the Union. And until then, and as always, size the day. You like that clip? Well, my State of the Union podcast drops every week. Subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.